Welcome to this beginner Photoshop tutorial. This is made for guys who are using Photoshop for the first time. So we're going to keep it very simple, very straightforward, and at least make sure you learn a way to maneuver your way around it. So right away we jump into Photoshop. So I have a canvas open, a blank one, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the different sections which are available in Photoshop. At the very top we have a menu bar. The menu bar has a file, edits, filter and so on, some sections for you to get options when you're using it. Then on the side we have a toolbar, which is going to be the most used section as we are using Photoshop. So it has these icons here which show you which tool to pick. Then on the right we have the panels bar, and on the panels we have different panels like adjustments, layers and so on, which are going to help you make modifications as you're using the tools. So let's start in with the very first tool here, and the very first tool is called the move tool. So the move tool is used as it suggests. It's used to move items on the layers. So when I drop something into Photoshop and I need to move it around, for example, so let's say we have this image. I just drag and drop an image into Photoshop, and here we have the image. So once the image is here and I would like to position it in a specific place, I can use the move tool to move it around, and that's essentially what the move tool does. So let's say I would like to scale the image a little bit. I can do the same using the move tool, and you can see when I point at the edges of the image I get some scale tool, which when I drag my mouse enables me to move the cursor and make the image bigger or smaller. So that is the other use of the move tool. You can use it to scale an image, and also if I place the cursor outside the image, maybe like here, you can see that the cursor changes. At the edges it's a straight one, when I place it at the top it's a curved one. So that essentially means when you click and try to twist, that enables you to rotate an image or whatever is on the screen at that particular time. So the move tool can be used to move things around the screen. It can be used to rotate items, or you can still use it to scale items, that is, make items bigger or smaller. Then we can move on to the next item, which is the selection marquee. And we have a rectangular marquee, elliptical marquee, single, and rows and columns. So you're just going to use this same image to demonstrate how that can be used. So I'll drop a different image here, and using this image, so let's say I would like to select a square part of this particular image. So I can pick the rectangular marquee, then just come and select the section I would like to have modified, and as you can see I have a rectangular or a squarish selection around that specific item. So with that selection, like we'll see later, you can use it to make different modifications on this particular image. So like for example, let's say I want to create a new layer from this. I can just right click, then make a layer via copy, and on the layers panel you notice that now I have two layers. I have the original and I have my selection on top. So assuming I wanted to blur the background so that the image appears like it has a frame, I can go to filter, then blur, then add a Gaussian blur. So I can extend that until I get the blurriness I'm looking for, and that essentially shows you we have the selection left out and we have the background having a different effect on it. Then the other tools like the elliptical, it will do the same thing just in a different shape. So if I was to undo that, you undo that by pressing Ctrl Z. Then I use the elliptical marquee tool. I can just draw a circle around a specific item and make a modification on it. For example, I can still do a new copy with this. Then I can decide this specific item, I'm going to make it black and white. So I'll choose the black and white modifier here, then apply it to that specific item. So if I applied it to the selection which I had done by pressing this small button here, so you notice that it's only the circular part which I had selected which appears black and white. So the next tool we have is another set of selection tools. We have a lasso, we have a polygonal, and we have a magnetic tool. So you're going to explore those right away. So I'll use a different image for that. So let me drag in this one. So we'll start with the lasso tool, and using a more practical example, I'll show you how we can use one of these lassos. For example, let's say the polygonal lasso. So the polygonal lasso is a selection tool, or a freehand selection tool, which enables you to draw around items which have a specific shape, especially straight lines. So for example, if I wanted to remove this tab from this table, all I need to do is pick the polygonal lasso, then I'll click, then drag the mouse, then click to pin the corner, then drag the mouse again. So basically I just try to draw roughly around that tab. Then still with the polygonal lasso selected, I can right click here, then I say fill. So when I say fill, Photoshop will try to fill that space which has been selected with whatever I pick here. You can fill it with a background color, you can fill it with a pattern, and so on. So but in this case I'll choose content aware. So when I choose content aware to fill that space, it means Photoshop will look for what is in the surrounding areas, then try to use the same color, same texture to fill in that space. So when you press OK here, you just give it a few seconds to process, and it's done. So you notice that our tablet has kind of disappeared, not so clean. So if we do it a second time, just to clean it up, this time we try to make the selection a little bit bigger so that there is no remnants of the laptop or the tablet. Then I do a fill again, and I click OK there, and voila, it's gone. So the rectangular marquee has helped us to choose around the rectangular shaped or the square shaped item with ease, because it can help you make like straight lines and you can maneuver around it with that sort of selection. The other one is the regular lasso tool. So we'll use a different image to illustrate what you can do with the lasso tool. So I'll open this landscape image here, and let's say for example we want to clear this tree here. So the tree doesn't have a specific shape, which we can say like you're going to use a polygonal lasso to go around it. So in this case, I will go for a less shaped tool, which is a lasso. The lasso is a freehand tool. You can draw literally any shape around with it. Just click and hold and drag the mouse. But again, you should notice that there's a difference between using the lasso and the polygonal. With the polygonal, I can click, release the button, maybe drag the mouse a bit, click again, release, and so on. When it comes to the lasso tool, when I click and let go, it finishes the process. So you need to be sure by the time you let go of the button that you've done selecting your item. So I'll make a drawing, or I'll try to select around this tree here, just using the lasso tool, just a rough sketch around it. Then we'll use the same technique we had used before. I try to fill it, and that is using content aware. So we use this in case we want something to disappear from a picture. So just make a rough selection around it, then try to fill it, and like you can see, our tree is gone. So the same will apply if I want to remove this shadow which the tree has left here. So I do the same, I fill it using content aware, and within a few seconds what the computer does is tries to grab the nearest pixels from the item you've selected, then try to blend those pixels. So as you can see, kind of the items which are on the image have disappeared. So you can do a little bit cleanup by filling in more the remaining patches, but essentially that's how you use the lasso tool. You can use it to do rough selections around things, and most of the times when you make a selection, to make it disappear is you can go to select, then you deselect, and as you can see here, the shortcut for that is Control D on a keyboard if you're using a PC. So if I select Control D, my selection disappears. Then we can go to the next tool, which is the magnetic lasso. I'll use a different image for the magnetic lasso, and this portrait here should do it. So there are different ways of selecting around a subject. With this image, I can use a polygonal or lasso tool, although it will be a little bit too rough. Let's say like I need to select this subject all the way. So you notice that as much as I might try, I might end up getting a very rough selection which has all these sharp corners and doesn't look so neat. And that's where the magnetic lasso comes in. So when you pick the magnetic lasso, it's a little bit smoother. Then it works with the edges of the image you're working with. So it just chooses the color differences, then sticks to that specific item which has a unique color. So let's say, for example, we want to select the subject in the image. All I need to do is get a starting point, then I just drag the mouse along the color of the item I'm selecting, and as you can see, the lasso clings onto the jacket. If you miss a spot like I've done here, you just press the backspace on the keyboard, then you can just click a little bit for it to get the path. Then I just keep dragging the mouse around, so the rest is going to take a while. Just rush through that. So let's say I would use the magnetic lasso if I'm selecting a subject who is maybe in between other subjects and you just want to extract that one item or that one object from the whole image. So you can see we have a complete selection around the subject, but I would say this is a longer way of doing things. So unless you had like 4 people in the same image and you wanted to extract that just that one person, then that's when you can use the magnetic lasso. Otherwise, there are simpler ways of doing this or doing this selection, and those options are found in the next selection tool. So in the next box we have select object, quick selection, and a magic wand. So those are faster ways or alternative ways of selecting objects without using the first 3. That's the lasso, the polygon, and the magnetic. And that will be straightforward. As I've said, it's a much quicker. So let's say, for example, I'd like to select the subject. I can pick the first option here, which is object selection. If I click that, then just drag around where my subject is. Photoshop will have its own artificial intelligence try to figure out where the subject is and kind of process it and give me that. So you can see we have the selection done within a few seconds without having to painstakingly go through around drawing around the picture. So these automated settings work in most pictures, not all. They work in some of the images. If the background is too busy, it might have a difficult time trying to pick around an object. So if you use a different example, we have a magnetic wand, which is an option here. If I would like to select around the subject, I could still use the same. I just need to click around the subject or the areas I'm not selecting. Then you realize that I have a selection around the person, but this part is not selected. So the wand did not pick this because there's no weight or there's no blank space which the selection could go through. So to do that, I'll need to come to the options bar or the tools option bar. So every time I have one of these selection tools, this bar appears, and the bar has different options which I can use to modify my tool. So let's say, for example, I would like to add this part into the selection. If I just click like this, I'll lose the rest of the selection and only have this. The same will apply if I click here. I have lost what I had selected here. So to get both selected, I'll need to come here and choose add to selection. So that gives me an option to click this. Then I can now add something to this specific selection. The same applies to the second one. If I need to subtract something from the selection, I'll just pick this option, and when I click, I can subtract that particular selection from, now I only have this remaining. So same. So these options will give you to add a selection or subtract a selection. And you can see using one click, we have the subject selected. So that's a second way of selecting a subject using these options. The one in between, that is a quick select, it's the most common used, works the same way. So if I was to select around this subject, I would pick the quick select, then I would just kind of drag around the item. So again, make sure for it to add to selection, the plus sign must be on. That enables you to add more selections as you drag around the subject. And once the subject is selected, you can always come here and create a mask for it. So I can create my mask by clicking right here, and as you can see, What has been masked is opposite of what I was looking for. So to get only the subject selected, all I need to do is right click and say select inverse. An inverse selection means it's a subject who's going to be selected, not the background. And right now you can see the selection is around the subject, and if I click on mask, then I get the background removed. So the whole point of removing the background is to try maybe change the background or superimpose the selection into a different space. So let's say, for example, if I was to add a shape layer, the shape layer can be any color. Since the person is wearing black, we can choose a grayish color around it. Then I switch that layer and place it below the subject, and we have a selection done. And as you can see, it's not so clean. We still have a remnants of the white remnants from the previous background. Later on we'll go through options of cleaning that up. Just remembered something. We could use the very first tools we'd use, like the rectangle marquee tool, to make some interesting selections on subjects. So I can just pick the marquee tool, then just do some random rectangles here, or rectangle selections. So they don't need to be same size or spaced the same, just something random. And you can see the reason we're getting more selection is because I have add to selection as the option for the selection tool. And when it's done, so you can choose what to do with these items. For example, I can choose to paint them black. So I just choose the color black there. Then I get a brush. You get a brush by pressing B on the keyboard. Then I just create a new layer, then paint on it using my brush tool, and it will only paint the parts I had selected. So it could just be a way of making the image look unique, maybe something frameable, but selections can always be creatively used for different things. The crop tool is a straightforward one. The shortcut for crop is C, and when you take the crop tool, it gives you these marks at the edges of the image you have. And let's say, for example, we want to make this image smaller, we can always reduce the size by cropping it. Maybe let's just want the lady alone. Then that's how the crop tool works. When I press enter, then we have the selection of the lady alone, like that. So let's say, like, for example, I would like to fit a specific shape into this plate. For whatever reason, we can just pick this lady's face. So all I need to do is pick the frame tool, and the frame tool has two options. It has a rectangular or the squarish, and the circular one, or the elliptical option. So if I pick the elliptical option and try to draw around this plate, so it looks squarish at first, but it will turn out to be circular. So you can see there's a minor circular option going around here. So I'll just resize it slightly just to fit in there. So once that is selected, it's always very easy to just drag anything and drop it there. So if I just get another image from elsewhere, then just come and drop it into that space, it automatically fits into the frame. That's what's called the frame tool. So you can always position it or reposition your item, and once you're satisfied with it, then you can press enter. And yeah, instead of what we had on the plate, now we have a specific item in that frame. So the same will apply for the rectangular one. So if I just draw a rectangle shape, then try to drop something into it, then whatever I drop there will just fit into that space, and that's why it's called the frame. A quick recap. So we've looked at the move tool, which is used to move things around the frame. Then we've looked at the selection marquees. You can do rectangular or elliptical or single rows. They all do the same thing, just in different shapes. Then we have the selection tools here. The quick lasso we said is an hold and draw tool, if you can call it that. Then the polygonal lasso we said is a more defined shape if you want to draw like specific geometric shapes when you're doing the selections. Then the magnetic lasso we said is a little bit more specific. If I would like to maybe outline a person, like in this case, where the person maybe is close to items which the automatic selections cannot maneuver around, then I would go for these options. It's a little bit smoother and a little bit jagged, so that you can get a little some clean selections around objects. Then we have the object select tool. The object select tool is, or this panel has the automated options. So any of these can work without too much labor when it comes to picking out the item. So for example, I just add one more image so that you have a look at that. So with this image, if I need to select the subject alone, I just need to pick one of these options. I don't need to select a specific one. For example, if I just click on the tab for the quick selections, then I come up here and there's an option which says select subject. If I click on this one, the computer will automatically, or Photoshop will have its artificial intelligence select the subject for us. And there we have it. So you can see it even now went to the extent of picking out parts like this, which are inside the picture. And it's a very smart tool. You just need to click it and most of the job is done. So the same applies to the other options here. They will do the same thing, maybe a little bit more manually. Like you say, the quick selection, I'll have to come and make the selections myself. Then with the magic wand, the same thing. I'll have to come and pick the parts which I would like to be part of the selection. So essentially, if an image is in a clear background, I would advise going for the select subject. It doesn't do a clean job the first time, might miss a few points, but you can always give it a try. So thank you, and we're going to proceed with another section of retouching an image.